Nurses are now bidding against each other for shifts, and the lowest pay wins. Let that sink in. There's a growing trend called Uber for nurses, where gig apps are using AI to staff hospitals. Sounds convenient until you see how it actually works. These platforms turn shifts into auctions. Nurses bid for the job, and whoever offers to work for the lowest rate gets it. So instead of hospitals competing to pay nurses fairly, nurses are competing to undercut each other. And it gets worse. These apps track everything. So performance, cancellations, even being late. That data decides if you get future shifts and how much you get paid. So now think about the clinical reality. You're being sent into unfamiliar facilities with little to no orientation, expected to provide safe care immediately. That is not just a workforce issue, that is a patient safety issue. And here's the part people are not paying attention to. These companies are actively lobbying to be exempt from healthcare staffing regulations, which means fewer protections for nurses, less accountability for these platforms, and more risk for patients. Healthcare is not rideshare. You cannot figure it out on the fly when lives are on the line. This is not innovation. This is a race to the bottom, dressed up as technology.
We are in a recession. Why? Because look, I'm here in Las Vegas, and that's the strip, or downtown Las Vegas, and there's no one here. It is as slow as it could be, and it is, 7 p.m. on a Saturday night?
Look around your neighborhood and you might notice something quietly shifting. The lakes are empty on the weekends, the grocery store aisles feel a little more tense. Millions of hardworking people are finding themselves stuck in this brutal middle ground, making too much to qualify for any help, but not enough to actually survive. We are watching the real-time financial exhaustion of the American middle class. From nurses being forced to bid on their own shifts for the lowest pay, to massive corporations squeezing every last dime out of our basic needs. It's not just inflation anymore. It is a systemic extraction of our wealth, and people are finally hitting their breaking point.
Here's a recession indicator. In my apartment complex, I am seeing more and more people get evicted than ever. I've started to see Section 8 people show up at my apartment complex. And it's a very luxurious apartment complex. And most importantly, what showed up this month on the little rent bill on the app is flex pay. So you can pay in 2 payments instead of just all at once. So I saw about 5 months ago, they had extended the due date by 1 day. It used to be due on the 3rd, and then you would get a late payment. But now it's due on the 4th, and then you get a late payment on the 5th. So that was the first indicator. Then I started seeing people get evicted. One of my friends got evicted. She said 4 other people were getting evicted with her at the same time in my apartment complex. And then, I started seeing Section 8 people show up. There's a big one. And then most importantly, like I said, flex pay. Flex pay showing up on the apartment payment, kind of a big deal. And this is in San Diego, California, so it's already expensive enough to live here. So things are starting to crack. And I'm just curious to see how long it can last.
You guys hear about the CPI report that came out today? I don't know why I listen to this garbage. So the top income earners making 6% year over year in income growth, whereas the bottom percentile, which is like most of us, right, has been negative wage growth. And yeah, whatever. These numbers mean nothing because it already confirms what a lot of people's neurology already tells us, is that people are cooked. Things are very intense and stressful, and we all need various ways of coping with stress. And for a lot of people, that is splurging, spending money, even though it doesn't make logical sense to do so in these times. People just so nihilistic about their finances that they'd rather just live for today than hope for tomorrow. Because I don't know if you've started a 401k and had to dip into it and take a big tax cut or tax hit. It's not fun. And at some point you're just like, screw it. And also you realize that you can't just say screw it all the time, because it will catch up to you. So, and I understand when you're burnt out, it's important to take care of yourself. But I think a lot of people miss the fact of like, when you're in survival mode, that is self-care, right? If you're just trying to put food on the table, that's a form of self-care. And things like hobbies and you know, the other self-care things, they have to wait.
So I came up here to Watts Bar this weekend, walking out on the dock, and if you don't think the economy is hitting people hard, I can tell you what to look for. It's amazing today. Normally, this is a Sunday afternoon. It's Mother's Day, so everybody's usually on the lake. You cannot see any boats, any jet skis, anything. I've never seen it like this. Normally, I come out here and I'll fish till about 10 o'clock because the boats and ski boats, jet skis, wake boats are going crazy. But look at that. If you don't think this economy and the price of gas is hitting people, they're not out in them boats. I went out this morning and actually seen only 2 other bass boats all morning long. So just an eyewitness account right here. You can tell that it's hitting people hard.
Farmers don't have enough fertilizer because of the war in Iran. 1/4 of all farmers don't have the fertilizer they need for planting season right now, which means there's going to be potential interruptions to our food supply later this year. And this is on top of the fact that 46% of all farms filed for bankruptcy last year because they didn't have enough money. And that's on top of the fact that less than half of all farms are going to show a profit, which means more bankruptcies will come because they didn't make enough money to make ends meet. Do y'all understand that if these farms close and one company buys them all up, our food prices will go through the roof? There'll be no more competition. It'll be one company running it all, and everything will skyrocket, and we won't have a choice. There'll be no competition, so we can only buy our food from this one person if they own all the farms. And that's what they're trying to do. You know, farmers aren't struggling because it's a hard job. They're struggling because somebody's trying to eradicate them. And that's the craziest thing, y'all. I don't think enough people are talking about this. What are we supposed to do when the cheapest food, like leafy greens and stuff, is $10? Because this is what the company wants to charge because they run all the farms. We can't live like this.
So today on Good Morning America, we had a first look at some new data that shows record high credit card debt and more Americans falling behind on their credit card payments. So this is an analysis from 2 groups, the Century Foundation and Protect Borrowers. And what it shows is that 111 million Americans, so that's about 40% of all U.S. adults, are carrying a balance every month on their credit card. So they are not paying off those bills in full. Of that, more than 27 million Americans can only afford to make minimum payments every month. And what is also sobering is that a growing share of families are maxing out their credit cards, opening new accounts, or then turning to other potentially high cost options like payday loans or buy now, pay later. This report really shows how much interest can get people into a debt spiral. Credit card interest rates are around 20% on average right now. So if you are only making minimum payments, you can get dinged with very hefty interest charges.
$4.29 this morning for the cheap stuff at the Amico here in Memphis. $4.29. Filled up my tank. I have a Toyota Camry. Filled up my tank on Sunday. It was $57 to fill up this little car.
The impact of last year's sweeping cuts to food stamps are starting to be felt across the country, including at this food pantry I'm at today in Phoenix. They have seen a surge in demand. I have talked to dozens of people who have been coming through food banks in Arizona. Many of them should still be eligible for food stamp benefits because of how low their income is, because they're seniors, because they have young children at home, or they're disabled. As a result, people are flooding into food banks like this one that is seeing record demand of people seeking a box of groceries to try and get them through a period of time.
So we've worked really hard to fill the gap for folks as they need more help. But the reality is, St. Mary's Food Bank and the other partners that we have across the state, we can only fill a small portion of that gap.
As a result, people told me they're eating less healthy, they're having to give their kids processed food and fewer vegetables and packaged snacks that they would not like to be giving their kids, but they feel they are forced to because that's all they can afford, or that's all they're able to get at a food pantry like this one.
Am I the only one noticing this, or does it feel like all companies are just pushing their limits? They are just trying to see how far will you pay for their service, their product. You know, restaurants, I don't know how we got to this point, but like an average drink now is around $20 at a restaurant. And you go look at any bottle at the grocery store, you know that bottle is, let's just say $40. We're paying for like one shot in that drink that we buy at a restaurant, $30, $20. Then we have subscriptions that are always raising their prices. And then the second that you want to quit, they're like, hey, hold on a second. Here's 2 months free on us. So then for me, it sounds like, okay, I've been paying more, so then they can give me this 2-month free offer when I try to leave. And then you have food like Lay's, which tried charging around $7, $8 for a bag of chips. And they realized, oh, you know what? People aren't paying this anymore. And how many times is this going to happen where it's just like all these companies are just going to continue raising prices until we say, yeah, we're good on that?
So we are headed for something not good. And while the media isn't really talking about it or talking around it, we need to acknowledge what's going on and planning for it. Not just that gas prices are higher and farmers are saying they're not farming. The hotel industry is saying not only has FIFA not brought the business they thought they would, their business during the summer is down. Bank of America came out and said people are not using their debit cards as much, like they're using their credit cards and they're holding balances longer. And then McDonald's came out and said, like, yeah, the average spend per customer is down and also the average customer count is down. And now even Planet Fitness has come out and been like, yeah. So normally everybody like signs up in January and then by like March, they don't show up, but for the rest of the year they just pay us $10 because it's $10. Like, people are coming in and canceling, or you know, their payments just bouncing. People don't have $10. When multiple corporations across multiple sectors are like, yeah, how they're spending, where they're spending, and how much they're spending is all off, something not good is headed this way. And look, I know Trump, Iran, all his stupid choices and tariffs and pretty much everything the Trump administration has done. But it's not a good sign when more and more people have to put more and more on credit, because eventually the credit runs out. If you don't have to spend money, don't spend it. Besides the fact that gas has gone up 50% and will probably go up way more than that through the summer, I just don't spend it. After Easter, they put ham on sale. I bought a ham and I put it in the freezer for Christmas because I was like, God knows if we're even going to have ham like around Christmas. Somewhere in the middle of summer, like turkeys go on sale. I'm going to buy one in summer because God knows if we'll have a turkey during Thanksgiving and or what the price will be. I haven't done this since like the second year of COVID, when it was just impossible to almost like get a grocery order put in. I kicked off like massive insomnia because all the grocery stores around me released like possible grocery slots at like 3, 4, and 5 in the morning. I won't be doing that again. Be wise, be safe. If corporations are saying it out loud and the media isn't saying much about it at all, that's a little worrisome. Usually they're the first ones to be like doom and gloom. Just completely give up on keeping up with the Joneses and, you know, fucking Instagram families that are whatever. Just keep what you got and make what you got go as far as possible.
You would tell you what's really frustrating? That there are so many people that are so out of touch with the reality right now that they just don't see how bad people are struggling right now. Okay, you're going out of town every weekend, every other weekend, doing this and doing that, and then here's our normal middle-class families. I make more money than I ever have in my entire life, and I can barely afford to drive to my office because gas is so expensive and food is so expensive. But yeah, here, let's go blow some money over here on this trip and go over here on this trip, while people that you literally know personally are struggling. And just praying that nothing happens between now and the time that you get your next paycheck, because how are you going to pay for it? Ideally, you need new tires on your vehicle. How are you going to pay for it? You need your oil changed in your vehicle. How are you going to pay for it? Why are we living in this America? Why? My best friend didn't take her kids to school on Friday. It was a half day because gas is $4 and something a gallon. And it was useless for her to drive her kids to school, back home, back to school an hour, 2 hours later to go pick them up. So they stayed home. I have to question if it's worth for me to drive to church on Sundays, because I don't want to use my gas that I have to get to work during the week. Why? Why? People are struggling. Normal people, middle class families are struggling. And not just like, oh, I can't afford to do this no, like rationing out. I'm not necessarily rationing out, but like, what can I not get this week that I probably need because I can't afford it? Like, can I put a little bit of water in my body wash so I can make it another week?
Texas, help this make sense. Okay. Right now, gas is $4.19 a gallon in Texas, where I live. 6 months ago, that same gallon of gas was $2.65, for an increase of 55% over the past 180 days. Okay, I'm from Washington State, so I'm going to compare it to Washington. Right now, in Washington, the average price for a gallon of gas is $5.75, okay? 6 months ago, the price of that gallon of gas was about $4.50, for a 35% increase over the past 180 days. Okay, so for the average 15 gallons of gas, let's just say 15 gallons of gas is filling up your car for average. That 15 gallons of gas is going to cost somebody in Texas about $63. The same 15 gallons is going to cost someone in Washington State $86, okay? So why does Texas have a 55% increase over Washington's 35% increase in gas over the last 180 days? That's my first question. My second question, I want to address the minimum wage. Minimum wage in Texas is $7.25. $7.25. The minimum wage in Washington State, $17.13 approximately. You know what that difference is? That's a difference of $9.88 an hour more. $9.88 an hour more, or 2.3 times higher minimum wage in Washington State, okay? So for someone in Texas to buy that 15 gallons of gas, it's gonna cost them 9 hours of work approximately. They're gonna work 9 hours at that minimum wage for that tank of gas. In Washington, for that same 15 gallons of gas, they're gonna work 5.5 hours, okay? 9 hours, 5.5 hours approximately. The last minimum wage increase in Texas was in 2009. That is 17 years ago since there has been a state minimum wage increase, a cost of living increase, anything, 17 years. Meanwhile, in Washington State, in the last 17 years, they've had 17 minimum wage increases, meaning about one a year the minimum wage goes up, and their next increase is scheduled for January of 2027. So why in the hell, why Texas, are you guys still living in wages from 2009? $7.25 an hour in the minimum wage when prices are going up exponentially here more so than other places. Texas has the highest property taxes in the United States, one of the highest at least. And my car insurance for perfect driving is the most expensive I've ever paid. In fact, people with DUI insurance in Washington State pay less than I do for car insurance with a perfect driving record. So I need somebody to explain this to me. Why is gas going up so much more in Texas than other places? And why in the hell is nobody in Texas voting to increase this minimum wage, $7.25? I want to know who is living on that and what is going on, Texas. Please, somebody make this make sense to me.
When you see working professionals watering down their body wash or 36-year-olds moving back in with their parents just to avoid drowning in rent, you have to acknowledge that the social contract is broken. It is not a personal failure if you can't out-earn a system that demands $100,000 for a routine tonsil surgery or charges nearly $5 for a gallon of gas while the minimum wage hasn't budged in 15 years. Companies like Planet Fitness and McDonald's are already seeing the cracks. People are simply tapped out. The credit cards are maxed, the savings are gone, and the American dream is starting to feel like a subscription service we can no longer afford. If you are feeling the weight of this right now, please understand that you are not doing something wrong. You are surviving a system designed to squeeze you. Take a look at your own daily life. What is the one basic expense that has finally pushed you to say, I just can't afford this anymore? Let me know down in the comments, because people need to see they aren't alone. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.
What's that? You want to know what the American dream looks like right now? I can tell you. Today, I spent $45 on a quarter of a tank of gas, 10 gallons or so, for $45. I then came home to the house that I share with my parents at the ripe age of 36. No, I haven't always lived here, but I got tired of flushing rent down the toilet where I could be saving for a house. So I decided to come back home in order to do that. And it has now been a couple of years that I have been here. And thank God I get along with them. They're decent roommates. But the reality is, this is my current situation. This is not freedom. This is survival. And then on top of that, you add an insane regime that is taking over your country that causes additional stress every day, plus all of the capitalism, plus the corporate America of it all. This is not an American dream. This is an American nightmare.
Got a 12-pack and a burrito, $123. Why am I still in this country? I'm not sure. $123 USD in Mexico, that's a used Toyota Camry.
These gas prices are really getting out of control. Yesterday I'm on my way to work and I need to get gas and I see $4.29. I think not. So I just went to work and I was like, okay, I'll see if that there's somewhere, cheaper after work. I'll go drive around to some other spots. After work, I'm driving around, $4.29. So I'm down to 5 miles left in my gas tank. So I had to do it. But definitely only put $20 in because I'm thinking, okay, gas prices, no way it's gonna be this much in a couple days. Today, I'm driving to work and I see $4.49. I think not. Kept driving, just got off of work, I'm on my way home. $4.99. They are smoking crack trying to rob us like that. In Columbus, Ohio, mind you. It's normally like $3 here.
In case anyone is curious at how f***ed up the United States medical system is, I just got an estimate for my 9-year-old's tonsil and adenoid surgery in July. Tell me why a 20-minute surgery, that's how long they said it would take, 20-minute surgery, to remove my 9-year-old's tonsils and adenoids is estimated to cost $108,447.46.
In just over 30 days, I will be leaving the United States for good. I will come back for about a 2-week period just to finalize moving everything, but I will not be living in the United States after another 35 days or so. And while it's quite sad to say this has been my American dream for the past 2 years, is to get out of the country. And it's extra unfortunate because growing up, I completely fell for the notion that America is the greatest place on earth and that there is nowhere better to be. And I know people internationally who also believed this and thought that they were going to immigrate to America and that was their dream life. But this has also completely faded away for them. I was told all these things about how great America is and this is the place to be growing up, and I really look forward to it. But now that I'm older, I don't see any of what I was told was going to be here. In fact, I don't even really recognize the nation I live in now from what I thought it was as a kid. And, part of that is just growing up. And, I actually thought that is just how life goes. You get older, you get jaded by the world a little bit, things start to lose their beauty, and you start to lose that spark, that youthful spark within you. But then I leave the country, not just on little 1-2 week vacations, but in periods of time where I'm living in other parts of the world, and I don't experience that at all. Especially in Europe, I feel like I'm living in a place that is still full of soul and full of life and, full of joy. But I come back here and I don't see that. All I see is, get a job, get a career. That should be your life. There's nothing beyond your career, and what the rewards that are being promised from your career is just more consumerism. You're told to get a career so that you can buy more stuff and have more things. And, you also just live in a completely soulless environment. You drive down the street and it's just chain after chain after chain after chain. And it's even an inconvenience to drive. So at this point, I've started to realize this nation doesn't really have anything left for me. It's going to be incredibly difficult just for me to get an entry-level job here. Why would I stay here? And yeah, I am very blessed to be in a position where I can go move somewhere else and do things to get a career over there. But it is sad because I did expect that I would continue to love the nation the way I did when I was younger, but now I just don't feel, I almost feel like completely numb to this place. America doesn't even feel like a home to me anymore. It feels like a place where I was just brought up and I get the opportunities from it. And if I really want to live a fulfilling life, I need to go live elsewhere in the world. And people, other young Americans and even people on other parts of the world are starting to notice this too, that, America is just not anymore what it used to be. And that sort of promise is gone. And I think even now, Americans that lived 85 years ago wouldn't recognize the nation for what it is, and not just because of technological involvement or advancement. And, our communities have been completely eroded just so that we don't have to constrain the individual. And I don't think individualism is inherently bad, but it's gotten to the point where that individualism just kind of leads to more consumerism at the cost of eroding our communities. So it is really sad, but I wouldn't trade the opportunities I have now for anything else, but it is kind of sad that I've kind of grown these feelings of feeling numb towards my home nation, which I was told was so great and such an amazing place to live.